I'm probably thinking way too much about this, and honestly, I kind of want to go look at some reviews now, although I never do while I'm vlogging, so it'll just have to be later. Hi everyone, Rosie here. Welcome back to my channel. What am I doing? This is my first actual content for Book Buffet video, and I'm really excited about it. As you can probably guess, I'm on vacation right now at my family's cottage, which is lovely. Also, I'm seeing my mom, which is fantastic, and my sister. It's really great. I'm making such slow reading progress because we're just talking non-stop all the time, and it's great. But I am reading Pressure Cooker. The authors will be linked down below because I don't know them off the top of my head. This book is about why cooking at home is not as straightforward as celebrity chefs like to make it seem, or big media people like to make it seem. So often we talk about how, God, the obesity epidemic, all the problems with diabetes, all these health issues, we could just avoid them if everyone would just cook at home and feed their kids home-cooked food. It would be so much better. Home-cooked food is great, but this book is exploring why that's actually not a super implementable thing for so many people, and the various obstacles and barriers that people face to cooking for their families or themselves. It really focuses on women taking care of young children or taking care of children. I've actually read a couple chapters already, but each section presents one sort of issue. So for example, the second part was about time constraints and different ways different families are constrained for time and find it really hard to have time to dedicate to spending a lot of time in the kitchen. And what I love about how this book does it is they actually include detailed profiles of, I think it's 9 specific families, 9 specific women who are responsible for feeding their families and their young children. So they don't just say, oh, well, if you're working precarious shift work and don't have a set schedule, it's really hard to plan these things. They actually go through and run through what's going on in one woman's life at one point in time to illustrate in a very real way how these different issues manifest. Hi, Editing Rosie here. I recorded this vlog while on vacation, as you can see, and I think at points I maybe wasn't thinking as clearly or articulating myself as clearly as I would have liked, so I think I'm going to pop in and out on this one. I'm not sure I'm going to be thinking clearly or articulating clearly now either, but I'm going to try. I realized while editing this that I'm not sure how I feel about the portrayal of these women. All of them, of course, consented to be part of this study and consented to have all of their stuff published with different names and occupations and stuff, so I don't think it's necessarily exploitive in that it was done without their consent or something, but I don't know if it feels like it is compellingly and impactfully communicating an experience that people have, or if it feels like middle class people needing to see torture porn to empathize with the poor. I'm probably thinking way too much about this, and honestly, I kind of want to go look at some reviews now, although I never do while I'm vlogging, so it'll just have to be later. I don't feel as a middle-class white academic, albeit not in the same field, but in a kind of related field, comfortable saying whether the way this information is presented is appropriate or not. I don't have answers, I just have questions. So far, in the first 2 parts, there hasn't been that much that I didn't expect. There's been a little bit of stuff about the struggle when you feel connected to a certain cuisine, but also that a lot of elements of that cuisine aren't healthy, that I hadn't thought about necessarily, and how that plays out, where you want to make the food that you love and that gives you comfort and that connects you to your childhood, but also you want to feed your children food that is healthy, and how that can be a struggle. Overall, most of the concepts it's raised have been things where I'm like, okay, yeah, I expected that. But it's still fascinating, and the way that it's explained is super interesting. I'm just waiting for some sunscreen to soak in before I put on a hat and go out in the sun, so I thought now would be a good time to check in about Pressure Cooker. It's coming really along really well. I've read 5 out of the 7 parts. It's one of those books where I've read 40% of the book, but I'm almost done it because there's so many notes at the end, and honestly, I love those because it feels sort of like I'm cheating at page count. It feels like I'm pretending to read a 350-page book, but actually I'm reading a 230-page book. Does anyone care about this? No. It's really interesting. Again, still not lots of stuff that I didn't expect, but I do like how it gives different angles on a lot of things. For example, it talks about often parents have really good intentions with what they want to feed their kids. They have thoughts of like what the right things are. They want to feed them healthy food. They want to feed them the food of their culture, whatever. And just because a parent wants to do that or tries to do that doesn't mean the kid is going to play along, and sometimes kids are refused to eat. So all the best intentions in the world don't necessarily equal a kid having what the parents want them to. Another point where I need to jump in, because now that I'm watching this on video, I don't know how I feel about my statements. Watching this section back about sometimes parents have good intentions and are trying to feed their kids healthy foods, and kids just refuse sometimes. This is probably unnecessary, but I can't decide, so I'm going to include it. I don't want to imply that all parents are good parents, and that any kid who is not listening to their parents is inherently a bad kid, because that is not at all true, and unfortunately, as I think we all know, there are far too many terrible people in this planet who are treating children terribly. I think I'm really speaking here more about parents who, under the best knowledge of the time and their best judgment, are trying to take good care of their kids and aren't trying to be horrible to them. But, you know, sometimes kids just don't want to eat broccoli, even though it's very healthy for them and good for them long term. I don't know. I don't want to sound like I'm either shaming picky eaters or implying that parental obedience is more important than anything, because I'm not. The people who are profiled in this book and the people who are highlighted are not shown as perfect. Like, that's almost part of the point. They have external struggles and they're not perfect people. They make mistakes. They don't handle things the way people necessarily should all the time. But we don't hide that. They're not pretending that these are perfect mothers, because there is no perfect mother, right? There is no perfect parent. And I think it's a really healthy and really important thing to show that and to talk about people being flawed and doing their best and trying and sometimes losing their temper. And I don't know, I appreciate that. I appreciate that it's showing all the sides of these people, because I think it does give a more complete picture. This vlog is going to get so long. I thought it was going to be so nice and short to edit, and I'd be done so quickly, but I have to go deeper. I have to, I get it, Amrita. I get why you have the little jokes that you pop up in the side and where you meta comment on your own stuff, because I'm feeling it tonight. Basically, I want to say that I think it's healthy for parents in general and mothers in particular to be reminded that perfection is not real. I'm obviously not a parent. I don't have any plans to become a parent at any time in the future, but I do have a lot of opinions on it, but not in a bad way, I don't think. There's always been some form of pressure to be a perfect mother, right? Whatever that means for the standard of the time. The current prevalence of social media, I don't want to say social media is the cause of it, because I think this sort of attitude has been around forever, and there's always been the sort of people who would probably make comments on your mothering. But I think the current seeing into people's lives so much, but only the polished, curated version, can really mess with your sense of self and your sense of worth, and make you feel like you're the only one who's struggling with this and everyone else is having happy, perfect babies, and why does yours keep crying all the time or something? We all know that that's not true, but sometimes it can be easy to forget when we only see everyone else's highlight reel. I don't know, I didn't mean for this to turn into a social media rant or anything. I just want to say I think it's very positive, at least from my perspective, to see mothers be shown as complex and intricate human beings, which they obviously are. I think I'm gonna leave it at that for now. I think I'm about to finish the book, which is why I wanted to pop on quickly and just talk about it a bit now, but okay, let's chat about this book while my tea is steeping. I enjoyed it. I think I gave it 4 stars, but it wasn't exactly what I wanted. Now, that's not a flaw of the book. I know I've said that so much lately. This was a really interesting book. I think it's really valuable. I think it is a very worthwhile book for a lot of people to read, but there wasn't a lot in it that I found super new. I might have mentioned this in my 2 previous clips, I can't remember now, vacation brain. Basically, for someone who's relatively politically informed and left-leaning and relatively aware of labor issues in North America and the US specifically, there's not a lot of issues that were brought up in this book that surprised me or that I didn't expect to see here. Pretty much everything was yeah, that's a huge problem. And I did appreciate how it was illustrated through these profiles of the specific people and the specific families. I think it helps really drive the point home of what's going on. But personally, I would have liked to see more emphasis on the what are things that we individually and societally can do to try and combat this issue and to change these circumstances, and less this is the circumstance. I think it still is a really, really valuable resource and could really shed light on things for some people who maybe don't think about this stuff as much. But just for me, it wasn't everything I wanted. The other note, and I don't know how to feel about this, is that it really focuses on women caring for young children. And that makes sense because this was based off academic work. You want to go precise, right? You want to be super specific about what's going on and what you're studying. And of course, they're looking at it in the context of caring for children. So of course, you're going to focus on people taking care of children. In general, women do a lot more of the food, shopping, planning, preparing, cleaning work in most households, so it makes sense to focus on women. I think if you started to try and get into looking at men and women, it might balloon up a bit and like get too broad and too much to try and look at in this detail. But at the same time, I think a lot of the issues that were raised in this book are not exclusive to women. They're not exclusive to people caring for young children. And I think maybe even just like one chapter discussing how we're looking at this in this very specific context, but these issues far more widespread across other groups as well. I think that could have been interesting. Right. What was I trying to say here? What did I just ramble on for 2 minutes about? I'm going to try and sum it up and see if I can make it make sense. Basically, I think for an academic work, looking at this level of precision and specifically at food insecurity, and not even food insecurity, but various issues surrounding food among women with young children. That makes sense at the academic level, I think. Personally, the tone of this book was a bit too general audience, and I think because the tone was more general, I felt like I wasn't sure what the main focus was. Maybe I'm just expecting my books to be too simple, but I couldn't tell if we were looking at this from a feminist lens or a food access and related to food social problems lens. And I guess the point is we're looking at it intersectionally, but like I said, I just don't feel like it 100% worked in this tone. I always find it easier to pull out the negative aspects of books and to highlight the things that I didn't like as well or I thought could have been done better. But I don't want to give the wrong impression. This actually was a fantastic book. It was much easier to read than I anticipated because it did sound quite academic, and I was kind of thinking, oh, maybe this will be quite dry, but I think they've adapted it for a non-academic audience really well. It's very readable. The writing is compelling. The way people are presented is interesting. And I don't know, I think if food insecurity is something you're at all curious about, this book is one to read. Although that being said, again, it's very US-centric. It's not a book on food insecurity in general, but if food insecurity in the US, or I think a lot of this stuff would apply to Canada as well. Obviously, they're very focused, so they're not considering that. From what I do know, I think a lot of these things, you could very much look at them in a North American in general context and start to talk about what we can do differently and how we can stop failing some of these people as a society. So that's it. That's my first Book Buffet read. I really enjoyed it. It was really, really good. And I'm excited to get to my next one. So if this book sounds interesting to you, let me know down below in the comments. Are you thinking about picking it up? Is this a topic that you're interested in hearing more about or reading more about? I would love to know. And as always, if you like this video, please hit like down below. If you would like to see more of my videos, please hit subscribe, and thank you for watching.